Global warming is generally the steady increase in temperature at the surface of the Earth that resulted from the emission of so-called carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gas resulted from the economic growth of human beings.
Now, when we talk about global warming, the first thing that we have to be careful is that we are talking about a global issue. So it's not just a localized warming in a particular place, but it's the average temperature of the whole globe over a long period of time.
When we are talking about climate change, we are talking about a changing climate system caused by human activities.
Today, global warming has become one of the crucial issues in the field of environmental studies. For example, our health, the food we eat, the environment we live in, and the natural environment for animals and upcoming generation of humans. Extensive research on phenomenal change shows that Hong Kong is already experiencing global warming. Therefore, certain measures and efforts must be put in place to try to mitigate the situation. With temperatures going up, global warming is predicted to result in dramatic changes to some of the Earth's major geophysical elements that in turn may result in threats to our daily lives and well-being.
Because of research reason, I have the chance to visit the high Arctic 7 times. Every time I visited there, I find there is a dramatic environmental change. In the past, our experience that in the high Arctic, there's a lot of floating ice, and the glaciers are extremely beautiful and large. But recently, when I visited there, I find less and less floating ice on the surface of the ocean. Moreover, I can find that the glacier being shortened. That probably because of the melting of the ice resulted from the global warming effects. In the past, I can find very little water in the glacier. Because of the melting ice, I can find more and more water flowing into the ocean from the glacier. And in fact, those water, when they flow through the coastal line, that resulted with the change of the ecosystem. More and more grassland being found in the coastline of high Arctic. That is not a good thing because that resulted from the melting of the ice, that the Earth being exposed to the surface air, and such that more and more gas being colonized in the coastal line area of the high Arctic. This is an egg of a penguin that I collected from the Antarctica. The first time I saw the penguin that's at the coast of the Antarctica, that's very near to the floating ice. But now, because of the melting of the floating ice, I can see that that the penguin have to move more and more inland so that they are able to find their food there. And that actually a very dramatic change in the Antarctic resulted from the change of the weather. And in the past, we do not experience any kind of harmful algal bloom in the Antarctic Ocean. But unfortunately, for last year, I saw a very big harmful algal bloom, so-called red tide, commonly happen in Antarctica. We never expected that red tide would happen in Antarctica. Sometimes a red tide, if happened in Antarctica, that would result in the change of the food chain in the Antarctic Ocean. And that also resulted from some of the toxin secreted into the food, so that the penguin, when they ate them, they would die because of the toxin infection. This is a kind of lichen I often found in the high Arctic area. In the past, I can find it easily because it is an indicator of very clear air over there. But now, I find that more and more difficult in finding this kind of lichen in the high Arctic. That probably due to more and more polluted air being flowed from the very human-directed country into the high Arctic region. That resulted in the environmental change, and that the unfortunately, that the lichen can no longer be survived there.
What's more, migratory birds are likely to be affected by global warming in terms of where they can rest and feed on their journey. For example, highways and concrete roads are being built in areas that once were mangrove swamps. These mangrove swamps are where these migratory birds would traditionally land. So if there are fewer mangrove swamps, the birds will have to look elsewhere for a place to stop. We can only hope that mangroves will be able to adapt, or they will shrink in population even more due to the sea level rising. The mangroves will not be able to retreat inland to escape the seas, as they will be blocked by a wall of concrete. In turn, both the food supply and living spaces for these migratory birds are under stress.
The climate change will affect the breeding ground of birds. Birds have to move further north to breed. It also affects the wintering ground. For example, they would find some places more suitable than before, and then they will decide to stay in a more northerly wintering ground. It also affects the migration because they will decide to move earlier or later. And then it also affects the distance that they have to move. And in general, they have to move a longer distance to travel from the wintering ground to the breeding ground.
Global warming has clear links to our health, the ecosystem, the food supply, and increases in natural disasters, just to name a few. All of these will affect economic stability.
Recently, a lot of scientists, they do quite a lot of research about global warming with our human health. For example, I can say global warming, the first thing can affect the insect. For example, mosquito is one of the big vector, or we can say is the vector, to transmit the disease, for example, malaria, also dengue fever. Talking about the air pollution index, API, API content include nitrogen dioxide, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, ocean as well. Actually, they affect the vulnerable group. That is referred to the geriatric, the old people, and also the young people, as well as the chronic disease people. The chronic disease people, we also refer to someone they have heart disease or maybe the chronic respiratory disease as well. When that sort of the index is become higher, actually for the vulnerable group, they will have more threatened because they have really weakened respiratory system. When the respiratory system is a little bit weaker, then they will have used a lot of effort to breathe when the index is a bit higher. When they working so hard for their respiratory system, and then they will affect their cardiac system as well. So API actually is the really good index to reflect what sort of the activity for that sort of the vulnerable group they can do, or maybe they're not doing that.
It is a fact that Hong Kong is experiencing climate change. Research conducted by the Hong Kong Observatory indicates that Hong Kong has been on a warming trend for the past 118 years since 1885, which is in line with the global warming trend. In other words, the effect of global warming is on.
Now, the first thing that one should notice about global warming is that it's a global phenomenon. So it's not just a localized warming or cooling in a certain place, but we are talking about the average temperature of the whole globe. The second thing that we need to understand about global warming is that it is a long-term phenomenon. So we are talking about changes in the past 50, 100 years. So the globe has been warming up very gradually over a significant period of time. So when we have a cold winter, it doesn't mean that the global warming is not occurring. We have to be very careful in distinguishing short-term fluctuations in the weather with the long-term warming trend. Another significant piece of information that we should notice is that scientists have in the past 20 years or so established that the global warming in the past 50 years is mainly due to human activities. And they're very confident about this conclusion. Now, if we look at the temperature time series at the Hong Kong Observatory, we can see that in the past 100 years, the temperature has risen by about 1.2 degrees in 100 years. That is round about 0.12 degrees per 10 years per decade. In recent years, the warming has become faster and faster. Now, at the present moment, the warming has been going on at the rate of about 0.28 degrees per decade. That is more than double that for the past 100 years. We can also see this warming trend in nearby cities, in Macau and Guangzhou. And we can also see that the warming is slightly less than Hong Kong in Macau and slightly more in Guangzhou. This is related to the rate of urbanization of the three cities. Here back in Hong Kong, we can see that the rising trend in the temperature is most significant in the minimum temperature. At the maximum temperature, the rise is not significant. Now, this is related to the effect of urbanization. About slightly more than half of the warming that is observed in Hong Kong is due to global warming, and a significant portion of it is due to urbanization. The reason why we have a larger increase in the minimum temperature compared to the maximum temperature is that cities give out heat. Cities generate heat during the day. And that heat is being retained by buildings and released during the night. That is the reason why the minimum temperature is rising faster than the maximum temperature. Another significant thing that we observe is that the occurrence of warm spells is becoming more and more frequent, while the occurrence of cold spells is becoming increasingly rare. We can see an increasing trend in the occurrence of thunderstorms. This is perhaps due to the urbanization effect, which might provide additional heating, which help to trigger the formation of deep convection and thunderstorms. Now, we can also see that the occurrence of extreme rainfall, extreme high rainfall in 1 hour, 2 hours, and 3 hours have increased, which is consistent with the global trend of increasing heavy rain days. We can also see that although the annual rainfall hasn't increased by that much, but the contribution of heavy rain days to the annual rainfall has increased. Now, if we study the occurrence of heavy rain, we can see that for days with 100 millimeters or more, it happened once every 37 years in the year 1900. Now, by the year 2000, the occurrence of days with 100 millimeters has decreased to 18 years. In other words, days with very heavy rain has almost doubled in the past 100 years. For minimum temperature at the observatory, we can see that an occurrence of 4 degrees happened once about 6 years in the year 1900. By the year 2000, it has become an extremely rare event which would only occur once every 160 years or so. As far as visibility is concerned, let's look at the number of hours with reduced visibility in each year. From the late 80s up to the present moment, the number of hours with reduced visibilities per year at the Hong Kong Observatory headquarters has increased significantly. It's almost a 10 times increase compared to the late 60s to the mid 80s. Now, this is very significant. Since the early 60s, there has been a slight but insignificant decrease in the number of tropical cyclones landfalling near Hong Kong. The number of typhoons making landfall near Hong Kong has remained constant throughout the years.
Climate change is not only a scientific issue, it is also closely related to our environment, energy consumption, economic activities, and our daily lives. As a responsible citizen, there are many ways to reduce the global warming emission at home and on the road. Every individual must play a part to protect the environment for future generations.
As a citizen, actually, most of the citizens think that nothing they can do. They always think government should do a lot of things, or the private sector should do a lot of things because they have the resources. But when we look at every individual, even in Hong Kong, 7 million people, if everyone can really contribute our part to do something positive to help the environment, the concerted efforts add up together will make a difference. Now, I'll give a few examples. Energy conservation, improving energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit, is the number one, the first thing every one of us can do, such as when you are using an air conditioning environment, how to set your room temperature. Set it to extremely cold, below 20 degrees Celsius, or to a very optimal temperature around 25, 26 degrees Celsius. So this is a turn of the thermostat will help to reduce the excessive usage of air conditioning. Hence, it will reduce the power consumptions. In terms of lighting, every home, every office will use a lot of lighting, especially in office. Light, somehow, if you use excessive light, you will create light pollutions. You will waste a lot of energy, and then the power plants will emit a lot of greenhouse gases that will exacerbate the global climate change. So we can use optimal lighting, use when only needed, then it will help save a lot of energies. Some people will drive their own private cars every day to go to work, even a long journey, say from Yunnan to Central, they drive. But when we can really change this mode to making use of our public transport, which is very energy efficient, and then it will help to reduce the consumption of fuel, and hence to reduce the emission of both air pollutants as well as greenhouse gas. So one action will have the positive effects on two things to address local air pollution problem as well as the global climate change issues. A slightly change of our lifestyle to make it not totally simple but a little bit simpler, then you can help by changing your lifestyle to reduce the consumption, and then you will help save a lot of energy and hence to help the global climate change problems.
Large-scale measures by the Hong Kong government can decrease global warming at the local level. For example, by using alternative fuel mixes for power generation, promoting energy savings through the labeling scheme and other programs that target other industries and individuals.
The government objective to combat climate change is to transit Hong Kong into a low-carbon economy, which means we will use cleaner fuel to rely less on fossil fuels, to improve energy efficiency, and to promote low-emission, low-pollution lifestyle. The success of this policy objective requires cooperation of government, private sectors, as well as the public at large. Electricity generation is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Hong Kong. About 2/3 of our emissions is from this sector. So in 1997, the government has banned the construction of new coal-fired power generating units in Hong Kong in favor of cleaner gas-fired units. In August 2008, the government and the National Energy Administration signed a Memorandum of Understanding on Energy Cooperation to ensure continuous supply of natural gas and nuclear electricity in Hong Kong for another 20 years. This is a very important development because it allows Hong Kong to switch from the existing fuel mix for electricity generation to a cleaner fuels. In terms of the end use of electricity, buildings account for about 90% of our local electricity consumption. So it is very important to reduce the electricity consumption in buildings to bring down our greenhouse gas emissions. In July 2008, the government issued guidelines for conducting carbon audit on buildings in Hong Kong. The guidelines facilitate building owners and building managers to measure the greenhouse gas performance of their buildings so as to find ways to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. In April 2009, the government introduced 450 million Hong Kong dollars Buildings Energy Efficiency Funding Scheme. The schemes provide subsidies to building owners to conduct energy carbon audits on their buildings, and two, to carry out energy efficiency improvement projects on the buildings. So far, we have received over 1,000 applications covering about 1/6 of our building stock. In December 2009, the government introduced draft legislation on mandatory implementation of building energy codes. This piece of legislation allows the government to set minimum energy efficiency requirements for new buildings and for buildings which will undergo major retrofitting. Year 2008, the government introduced the mandatory energy efficiency labeling scheme in Hong Kong. The first phase of the scheme covers 3 products. They are room air conditioners, refrigerators, and compact fluorescent lamp. They are in full implementation since November 2009. In March 2010, we introduced the second phase to cover another 2 products. They are washing machines and dehumidifiers. The total 5 products will use about 70% of the electricity in a normal household in Hong Kong. With this labeling scheme, these products will bear the label so that the customers can choose energy efficient products for their use. Eventually, they will bring down the electricity consumption in the household.
The principle is think locally, act locally, and in fact everybody has a part to take in global warming and global warming protection. For example, if you are a fashion designer, if you are able to source for more environmental friendly material, that can help. If you are an engineer, of course, at time when you think about your engineering project, you think about energy saving, you think about your natural resources recycling, that can help. So everybody can take a part in environmental protection, in reducing the global warming effects. Education is crucial. In fact, in our high school study, if environmental protection can be incorporated in the curriculum, that we can help to incorporate the environmental knowledge when we are still young. For professors in environmental protection in university, we are able to teach them more and more environmental policy, environmental management, and environmental economics, so that the whole society can be fully engaged in the environmental protection activity. And finally, energy consumption is crucial. We are able to develop more and more policy and technology that help us to reduce our energy consumption and increase our energy efficiency. Finally, the global warming effect will highly reduce by our action.
The heat is on, and it's time for us to take action. On the one hand, there are many things we as individuals and family can do to reduce our contribution to global warming, such as minimizing food and energy waste. On the other hand, it is believed that the government macro policy solution can exert a greater impact by regularly reviewing its legislative control on power generation, greenhouse gas emission, and waste management, and raising public awareness about energy conservation and waste reduction. We hope to see a positive change in the near future.